free.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this yet another edition of the Pan-African debate here at Fairway Hotel. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a political platform, this is a Pan-African platform which happens here every other Friday, 5 to 9 p.m. Is Africa ready to act? Does it have that economic plan ahead of time that can be able to sustain its native citizens? In other words, is the future economic prospects for Africa in the hands of the African people?
Our viewers, I greet you all. Honorable Speaker, the motion before us today is very broad, and I don't think we can exhaustively discuss it, and let alone come up with a straightforward response to this humongous challenge. First of all, due to the fact that the proponents or the proponent dynamics of economics, which include but are not limited to demography, where we have the population, we also have democracy. We are looking at what kind of governance, what kind of government are we running. We are looking at how we respond to conflicts, which brings me to conflict resolution. And the biggest and the major proponent being the external environment. These things vary from country to country, and we cannot have a very uniform future in terms of economics as the continent of Africa, unless we have what some people have been agitating for as the United States of Africa. I think it is still a far-fetched dream, and therefore it is upon that basis, Mr. Speaker.
So do you mean that since it's a far-fetched dream, we cannot hold on to it? Are you saying we should stop thinking that?
Most dreams are far-fetched, but as long as you have the will, I think there is always a way. Some wise man said, where there is a will, there is a way. So if we continue to pursue it, maybe we shall achieve it. Allow me to proceed, Mr. Speaker, by saying that it's upon those differences that I would like to examine the scenarios of the economic future of Africa in 3 categories. The first category will be the scenario which I call Africa follows. The second scenario will be the give and take. The third scenario will be the Africa takes charge scenario. So if we are going to borrow those examples in the near future, we are going to find ourselves, some countries will be doing very well to some extent, but other countries will lag behind. Therefore, the whole of Africa cannot be at the same footing. That in some countries, the future will be in the hands of the natives, while in others, the external factors will continue to play an upper hand.
Mr. Ian, before I take that mic from you, do you think it is extremely impossible for Africa to think around the box of having an African bank, like there is World Bank, like having a replacement for IMF, so that it can be able to take its economic interests first? Would that be out of the box completely?
If we are to make these institutions important and relevant, African countries must strengthen themselves first. We must deal with our internal issues. We must deal with our internal issues of democracy. We must make sure that the economic atmosphere is very conducive. People can wake up and go about their business. We can lure as many investors as possible. We can give them an assurance that when they come here in Africa, they will actually be treated equally as the natives, and they should not take advantage of the situation here. So, as much as this scenario looks like it is inconceivable, like I said in the beginning, that the United States of Africa looks like a far-fetched dream, I'm inclined into believing that we can achieve it, because I think just a generation ago, I think it is less than a century, East Asia was perceived as being mired in economic stagnation and war. But as we are talking right now, I think East Asia is one of the dynamos of the world economy. So I know we can do it. I can do it. You can do it. Together, we can put the economic future prospects of Africa in the hands of us natives. Viva Uganda, viva East African community, viva my beloved motherland Africa, for God and my country.
The economic future of Africa is a broad topic, but we shall do what we can. Economy is the wealth and resources in a country or a region, especially in terms of production, consumption of goods and services. The economy of Africa consists of trade, industry, agriculture, and human resources. Africa has more natural resources than any other continent in the world. But to our dismay, it contributes only 1% of the global GDP. This is because...
So it means the natives are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. The resources are there, we are not exploiting them. Is that the point?
Not the point, actually. Our resources are being tampered with.
By Africans themselves?
No.
By who?
By the Western powers.
What are the Africans doing when they are seeing the others tampering with them?
And that's why we are here.
Okay.
And at the end of this debate, Africa shall have known that we can contribute more than 1% of the global GDP. And as long as we continue being here, the economy of Africa is having hope. I was saying that contributes only 1% of the global GDP, not because African resources are maybe not exploited, but they are without value. The way we deal with them, we export them in a raw form. And when they transform them wherever we take them, before the colonial period, Africans involved in hunting, agriculture, mining, and simple manufacturing. But with the colonization of Africa, things changed. You realize that the mining left our hands and went into the hands of the whites, of our colonial masters. We were being directed on what to grow and not what to grow. Can you imagine? And that trend has continued up to now. It is high time we took upon ourselves. Half of Africa's population is below the age of 25. And all of you know that those below the age of 25 are totally dependent. They want food, shelter, education, medical care, everything. And this is still a problem in Africa. It is a reality. And this trend of population growth will continue for quite long. It will not stop so soon. and that infringes on the economic development. Africa will not continue picking crumbs of compassion that fall from the table of the people it calls her masters. It is time Africa gets a full menu and we stand on our own.
When Africa, a number of countries became independent, Kwame Nkrumah single-handedly argued for the formation of one African continent. I think that's when in 1963 they came to Addis Ababa and formed this Organization of African Unity. By that time, there emerged two blocks. Called them two branches, two factions. One was the Casablanca faction. You call it faction, well, there's another word.
Group of action.
You could call it a group.
Okay.
They call it was a radical, which wanted an immediate and urgent move towards unification of African unity. That was led by Kwame Nkrumah. Then there was a second one, which was known as Monrovia Group. This was led by Felix, the president is not coming, this one of Ivory Coast was Felix, the other name is not coming, but was a conservative. The conservative group of Monrovia argued then that it would be futile to struggle for independence and then hand it over to Kwame Nkrumah. That was the argument. And the argument is what is prevailing today. They were saying it's impossible to struggle for the African, for the independence of our country. And then we see our power to one president who is Kwame Nkrumah. This one I don't know.
Go. The camera is speaking.
The camera is speaking my different voice?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes.
So, Kwame Nkrumah was actually, these are the stooges, these are the colonial stooges of the West. And therefore we should not waste much time with them. We should go ahead and form an one African state. And again, within the radical, you call it radical wing of the Pan-African who wanted an African state. Then there were what they call gradualists and those who wanted to be united immediately. The gradualists belonged to Nyerere. Nyerere, he also had been captured by what I will come to explain as rather elitist theory. He was saying, no, well, it's unrealistic to form a one African state. Instead, let us begin with regional groupings. Let us have East Africa as a regional group, then have West Africa as a regional group, or North Africa, and eventually we form a state. This is the reason. The reason was this. I am not prepared also to see the power to one person. I am not prepared to see the power to one person so that we can form a one African state. I am not going to do many things, but definitely there will be too much which Africans can benefit from a united Africa. A united continent under one government. But then, why has it not taken place? Why has it not taken place?
Go.
Even before that, I ask that question. Even if we are saying we should need one African government, even I have asked a question in other form. Why is it we don't have a strong United Nations which can prevent wars in the world? Listeners, are you aware that we have got a United Nations in a name, but in practice it is an impotent organization? And so, some political scientists, they say United Nations is a project. It does not have an implementing machinery. States have retained their sovereignty, and therefore you cannot have one government which can prevent all the wars, despite the fact that United Nations was formed after the Second World War. Up to now, major wars have been going on, including this one of Ukraine. And why? All the people in the world, if we want peace, if we want economic development, why have we not got a strong United Nations which can prevent wars, which can promote development, which can liberate the people from poverty, which can stop global warming? These are the questions which I have been asking, and I have got caught up when I have tried to find the answers. One of the answers I found out that inherently we have got a malicious coterie or an oligarchy of evil makers in the West, interests in the West, who do not want peace, who do not want development, and who want the people to be oppressed. Now I come back on the question, why has the implementation of getting one government of United Africa has it not taken place? Now this time, I let me talk like an academician. I go back and I talk theoretically. I come to what they call elitist theory. Or what they call development, they can call it institutional, the Western, according to the Western, which I have observed, I have called them Barbarism. They say development means institutional and structural configuration. That one would appear too much complicated. Let me come to question of what they call elitist theory. Elitist theory says you create classes which compete for power resources, and when they are competing for power resources, they cannot think about the masses. Instead, they will be used to oppress the masses. And this is what the West created, which has prevented African countries to unite and form one government. Elitist theory can explain why African governments or African presidents have failed to come up with one president so that the African people can live together and can be happy. Imagine, you create a society where there are classes in every sector of the society, and the people are competing for power or influence. And the highest you can reach, I want you to follow me like this. The highest you can reach is to become head of state. All of us, you create classes, and everyone wants to be at the top. No one wants to be left behind. And when you are competing for that influence, the influence is at the state level. At the state level, you have got the highest you can achieve is to become a president or a prime minister, anyway, to become the head of state. You have got other influences in the market. If you are in the business, you want to become a billionaire with, when you are the chief executive, then you can get some few billionaires, but the positions are very good. Then you can have other sectors, like in the church. If you are a Catholic, They are priests. You begin as a priest or as a catechist. You want to climb to go to become a priest, a bishop, and then become maybe a pope. Those are the positions. Because people compete for power influence of Uganda. In this way, there was tribal crisis, and then there was a creation of classes where you have landlords and tenants, and all these brought conflicts. And towards the end, they allowed those who had grudges against colonialism to compete for political power. Can you imagine? They granted, but they allowed those people to compete for political power. So those groups that were marginalized started coming up with anger and competed for. That's why they said they struggled for power. Here in Uganda, we had the DP, the Catholics, who had been marginalized during colonialism. They formed DP. And then we had the Baganda who had been promoted as a favored state. They also formed the Kabaka. We had the other people, the radicals, formed the UPC. All those struggled for power. And it came towards independence. There was some were clever. Can you imagine? Getting independence would be negotiated in Britain.
Berlin Conference.
Not Berlin. In Britain, former colonial masters. I don't know here in Uganda where they used to go for those. They would invite all the kings, they would negotiate. You imagine, an oppressor would sit as an advocate among the conflicting teams. Now, the former oppressor became the friends who would bring all the conflicting people in Africa. But you know, the question is, when these people fell into sin, they cannot imagine of giving their political position. That at least still explains why the leaders cannot allow to form one continental government. Because I have explained, in all the sectors of the economy, they are competing groups. And the highest you can get at the state level is to become a president. It is only one position. You can imagine how acute the competition is.
Yeah, 45 million people vying for one
person. Now, from the research I've done, I have said Uganda, other African countries have never been independent. The white man oppressor is always behind and is always manipulating. And because there is only one position you are competing for, and there are very many people who are competing for it. So when you are in the power, they say, if you don't do our own sins, then we are going to remove you and replace you with another one. Now, these people, I want to emphasize the point. It's not only Africans who are afraid to unite. There are groups outside who want Africa to remain divided so that they can build and they can get the chance of looting our resources, of oppressing our people. So even if some African presidents would break one government, those people who are behind cannot allow it. But they prey upon the mind of our presidents because they are also power hungry. They prey upon the minds of our presidents because they are power hungry, they don't want to be power. And then they use people. Here in Uganda, I'm very sorry, I'm not touching on anybody. When Besigye lost elections in 2016 and wanted declared actually himself a president, I think everybody was seeing. He declared him a president and we will certainly beat him off. And he was trying to, correct. I remember very well, Besigye went to America 2 times. Say, he went there two times, I remember. Whoever does not remember it, maybe I don't know. That was the truth. He went there to plead for them so that they can enthrone him. Likewise, most of these presidents who are there are actually playing the games of those people. You people, you think most of the things we see here, speeches and so on. As far as I understand, the years I've spent in this world watching politics. Actually, I studied politics, political science. I worked for a political organization that was the enemy. And I have taught political science for more than 10 years. Political science and political philosophy. And I have been following what has been happening in the world keenly by reading the newspaper and by getting some of the things which were confidential, by reading all those books. Most of the things you see talking publicly is not what is being discussed. There are several things which are discussed behind the scenes, and for us, we think it is our leaders. Yesterday when I was here, I told you, they granted independence to African leaders so that they can use African leaders to bless their own people. And when things go wrong, then people should blame their own leaders, but not the barbarians, the former colonial masters. When you promote war in the Congo, you can pass through, pass through Kagame or President Museveni. And when things go wrong, blame Kagame and Museveni, but not the Americans. And when you have done that one, America comes in the open, we say, we know Museveni has been promoting our national interest here. They are open on that. So, what they discover is that it's not only our African leaders. There is a very malicious system, which to me now I know it is barbarian. I've written much about that one. Who do not want peace in the world, even at all.
Who is that barbarian?
It is an oligarch.
Who is that oligarch?
An oligarch is a small group of people that came up after the barbarians who were wild tribes from North America.
So those barbarians and the oligarchs, who are they? Who and where are they?
It is a tribe. Actually, I may talk about the tribe. It is a tribe which they call the Ghost tribe.
The what?
Ghost tribe.
Where does it stay?
They originated from the current Scandinavia and North Germany. Those were the people, actually, they are descendants of Cain. Cain who killed his brother. Yes, these are the people, are descendants of Cain. I have done enough research.
So Cain and Abel.
What happened?
Cain who killed Abel.
Yes, you go and read the book. Cain Abel. When he killed his brother, he was banished from the tribe and the clan. When he was banished from the tribe and the clan, he became a wanderer. And somewhere, somehow, he gets settled and got a wife. When they got a wife, they produced children. When they produced children, these are the descendants, they formed a tribe they call the Kosi of they call the pastoralists. It is these people who organized and promised or avoid to destroy the traditional society where it is, where there is any society of the society. So they conquered the Roman Empire, which was based on the traditional society. After conquering it, they put there a very what they call oppressive state. It is that oppressive state that has been inherited from Europe and caused genocide in Australia, in Latin America, and went to cause the First World War, Second World War, and is causing the war even in Ukraine. and has caused impoverishment in Britain first and then took it to America. These are the people who are there. It seems as if they got the written instructions to cause mayhem in the whole world.
Free your mind now.
So these are the people who are evildoers. They are ever scheming on ever destroying any effort you do.
Are those people staying in Africa?
Whoever I used to get,
Where are they?
I did some research.
Hey.
They usually recruited themselves.
Where are these descendants of Cain? Where are they?
They also admit people, and one of them who has been admitted into their clan is Obama. Obama, Clinton, and so Obama is part of them now.
Are you sure?
Obama is part of that class. He's a part of the tribe of the West. He was recruited, and they were the people who called this COVID, what you call it?
COVID-19.
Yes, these are the people, they form the poor class. They are behind the scene in those so-called developed countries. They are not in the open. They work clandestinely. And actually, among that group, which I saw somewhere, I saw the list during the COVID. It includes this man, the richest man now. Is he still the richest?
Who is that?
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates.
Is part of the group. Clinton is part of the group. He does not follow their order. He will be removed and replaced by another one. So he must make sure that he does what they want. And he must do it cleverly, but they don't want a fool. They want a person who can use his ingenuity so that he is the one doing the thing. They don't want a fool. They want a person who can be clever, who can understand to do their game and do it very cleverly and smartly. So now I want to end up with the formation of AU and its weaknesses, its challenges. We had Organization of African States.
OAU, Organization of African Unity. OAU. Before it became AU.
Now, with the financial pressure of Gaddafi, they formed African Union.
Yes. It metamorphosed from OAU
to African Union.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, it was change of name, but the practice remained the same. I have got enough evidence that most of the organs of OAU are financed by those barbarians.
The AU now, today.
Every organ that is there is financed by the barbarians. You see how they manage to control the world. They use their financial power. And this one I have written it to you. When they invented the money, money, get it from me, listen to me, if I'm a teacher. Money is supposed to be a unit of exchange. That is, you produce goods, but you only want unity as a universal exchange. So goods should be exchanged at power. But under so-called modern civilization, money is used as a means of accumulating wealth by dispossessing others. So whoever has money has power. In the olden past, money was supposed to be only to exchange things. If I produce things which I don't have, then I get it from you who also producing something else. If, for example, I'm producing milk, you're producing milk, I am producing sorghum, we are supposed to exchange milk and sorghum, but using only this money as a unit of exchange.
Medium of exchange.
A medium of exchange. Now, the barbarians, this one I have got evidence. They said barbarians at the upper stage. This is, I get these things from Engels. He calls it at an upper stage. They discovered money as a means of accumulating wealth by dispossessing others. Of getting money by making other people poor. So now they have used this financial power that is even now which is being used as the Paris model by financing those activities. So that they finance all the organs of the OAU. For example, the security organ, that one I have got the book. I was teaching international relations at Cuba, I remember. They are the ones who provide. Even Because they say you don't have the money, you don't have the capability. And in the process, they direct what is supposed to be done. And therefore, because they are in charge behind the doors, they can never allow any Africa to become one continent with one president, with one power to decide on what to do. They cannot allow it at all, and that is the reason why we have failed the implementation of getting one government. But even if they, I'm finishing it. I'm saying, even United Nations is there in the name, it is important because they don't want a powerful organ which can stop wars, which can prevent wars, which can promote economic growth, which can prevent the global warming, and then they pretend they are doing the thing the right way. They play upon your mind. I can't believe it. Sometimes I shed tears when I know what they are doing is simply fooling the people.
Thank you so much, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, let me invite the Vice Chairman of the National Resistance Movement. Let me invite the gentleman who holds a PhD in philosophy from Latin America, USA. Masters in Business Administration, Nkumba University, 2005. He's also holding airline transport pilot license, and he has a diploma in that from CAA. National Vice Chairman from 2005 and to date, and he's also the Chairman Pan-African Movement Uganda chapter from 2005 to date. He's also the Chairman Africa Health Foundation from 2005 to date. He's also a former Minister of State for Health from 2001 to 2006. He's the CEO of Fortune Energy. It's a company based on Kampala Road there, forgetting that building. I've ever visited him. The gentleman is also the CEO of this Voice of Busoga. He's the CEO of Voice of Teso. He's the CEO of how many companies I've forgotten. The others will just be reminding you. But one of the other names that we normally call him, if he knows you so well and you are his friend, you will say Mwana Mwana. When you say Mwana Mwana, you know that this guy knows me. Ladies and gentlemen, a very big round of applause to Captain George Mike Mukula.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And our comrades, those who are listening from near and afar, it is always a great pleasure to have an intellectual discourse with people from near and afar. The African continent is a continent which I believe is God-given, as God gave the planet Earth to Africa, to the Africans. Let me say that all of us are proud to be Africans, and I'm happy and proud to be an African. Africa is the second largest continent in the world. We have a population of about 1.1 billion people, and the African continent has close to over 2,000 different ethnic dialects. The African continent is the richest continent in the world. Africa has also suffered a number of calamities. We have had the biggest setback Africa suffered from, and that was slave trade. Our topic today and tonight is to discuss the current and the future prospects, economic prospects of our continent. And I want to say that we have come a long way. We have come here today, and the African continent has got a bright future. I would want the population and the people to listen and to understand where we have come from. The world has gone through 5 major revolutions. The first revolution in the world was civilization. The second revolution in the world was the agrarian revolution. The third revolution in the world was the industrial revolution. The fourth revolution in the world was the scientific revolution. The fifth revolution that we are now undergoing is the ICT, or the information technology revolution. If you look at the African continent, in order for you to touch the future, the African continent, in order for us to transform the African continent, we must pave through 5 of these major revolutions in order to transform our continent. Let us not look at the negatives. Africa has gone through the negatives. We still have negatives. But I want to look at a positive picture. Mao Zedong said, always keep your eye on the big picture. I am focusing on the big picture of the African continent. We have the tool. We now need to acquire the tools. We now need to acquire the means. We now need to ensure that our society is prepared to meet the future challenges. I want now to define for you the direction we need in order for us to drive the African continent. We need infrastructure, railways. We need electricity. We need roads. We need a foundation of interconnectivity, our people to be able to radiate and to talk to each other. We need a common language. These are key areas that we need to focus on. The African continent, therefore, has a bright future. The future is bright if we can all align 5 major things. Number 1, we need ideological clarity. We need ideological clarity of Africans. We need to know where we have come from, where we are today, and where we need to go. We need to remove the ideological abnorm of believing that the Europeans are better than the Africans, the Americans are better than the Africans. Africans are actually can do much better. Secondly, patriotism. Believing as patriots in yourselves, in our nations. Patriotism. The third one is nationalism. Nationalism, to understand that we can now be able to build our nations together, bring them together. Because along that we move to the next 4th most powerful thing, and that is Pan-Africanism. The trading blocks we're now believing in, and that is the East African community, where you can improve on common trade, common energy, our common people, and demystifying the colonial boundaries is how we can be able to demystify the 1884-1886 Berlin Conference, and we remap the African continent, starting with trading blocks. The most fundamental is the 5th one, peace and stability. Without peace and stability, you cannot talk about constitutional stability. You cannot talk about accountability. You cannot talk about transparency. You cannot address corruption where there is instability and
you cannot talk about development.
You cannot talk about development. So peace is a prerequisite of our growth. I want to conclude by saying, my dear brothers and sisters, we have come a long way. The African continent's journey has been a long one. We have gone through the hills, we have gone through the valleys. We have been sold like slaves. We have been trampled on. We have been dominated. We have been partitioned. We have been weakened. We have been divided. We have had cliques or European imposters, colonial imposters. Neo-colonialism must be defeated in the African continent. No nation in the world will stop this great rise of the Africanism and our people. Believe me or not, our future is bright, and God help Africa.
Thank you so much. A very big round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to Captain Joseph. The professor from National Institute Changwazi, he told President Museveni, he's very confident and convinced that President Museveni is doing the right thing. Because after all, he's doing what he told him.
Thank you very much, comrades. First of all, there is not such a being in the world which is known as human and human, which is not economic. Other beings are just communities, but we are social because of property and labor relations. We should not therefore talk about what we can be or what we have been outside the context of either property or labor relations in a combination. I am saying that we should emphasize the type of economic system which is pro-people, organize people to own land, means of production, factories, mines, all things should be owned by people in organized societies, organized formations to own means of production. The fundamental thing we should be concerned with is means of production, land, factories, mines, oil. Who is going to own oil? Very important. Who owns? The next, who labors? You see, who labors, who owns? We should have an economic system, pro-people economic system, a welfare economic system, then patriotism with the party which supports a pro-people economic system.
Before we understand whether the Africans are indeed in charge or will be in charge of the economic resources, we must first understand how they lost them. They lost these because the Europeans came to Africa for 4 reasons. One of the reasons was to invest their excess capital. Why? Because after losing America, they had nowhere to invest the capital. 2, they came to look for markets. After America had won the war of independence, it no longer allowed the goods to come in. So the Europeans had to look for where to sell their goods. 3, they had to settle their excess population because their lands in New Zealand and America had been filled. So Europe had to look for resources elsewhere. That was Africa. So what we are saying is, Africans lost their resources mainly because of those 4 reasons. So I'm saying, colonialism is indeed what caused us to lose our resources. Through which processes? One was giving off the land to a property class, who are the landlords. And of course, as Kachamako has spoken, these were the kings whom we are having right now and the few chiefs. So the solution comes from 3 main things. One of the solutions is, 1, fighting to make sure to gain the political capital to stop the investors, not from accessing, but from accessing with ethics, accessing the moral ethic with moral ethics, sharing with us the development of our country, not just giving them absolute authority as deserving in the other countries. 2, we must make sure that the state is pro-people. And I think that will be what will give us a way forward. Having a pro-people state, making sure that the investors, much as they are sharing with us their capital, they must also share with us our ethics, such that we can develop together concurrently. 3, as Africans, if we don't fight, we are going to be wiped out like the Red Indians. So it's up to us Africans to make the decision right now or never. I thank you very much for the sake of time.
Very good evening, comrade. We will talk of 3 points. 1, the urge of total independence. If we all remember our history, the only time that Africa came together and had its economic future in its own hands was when we're fighting for our independence. In economics, is what they call an added advantage. Africa, we all know our added advantage was agriculture. Before the minerals came in, agriculture has been our thing. But now we are giving it away. With the current war that is going on, GMOs coming into the market. Yesterday I learned that Melinda Gates is funding Matoke GMOs. And these things are aimed for Africa. By the time we lose the strength, the only strength that we have, because our advantage, and everyone is looking at this, our strength is in our agriculture. All the wars, the Greek wars, were in Africa because of food. We don't need any other thing. So when we give away this freedom and the independence of producing food for the world, because when we go in GMOs, for those who don't know, then we will lose it all. The so-called imperialists, the white men, will be giving you the seeds You will be planting them and they will be buying them. So without them, you cannot plant anything if they don't give you. So if we lose this, then Africa will lose its economy. This is something very serious, by the way. We are going into a battle of GMOs and we're losing because our people are in ignorance. We don't know what is happening. But the wise nations of Europe and all that have ignored this, have chased it away. What about Africans? Why are we taking this? Can we eat our organic foods? Why do we need genetically modified organs? So if we do not realize our added advantage, which is agriculture, then our economy is lost and we'll be lost forever. Thank you very much.
I want to stress the point Captain Mugula was speaking about and what my comrade friend spoke about. The future of Africa today, if you're going to speak about how do we turn $24 trillion in DRC into real wealth and prosperity for Africans, then we definitely have to speak about who owns, who controls, yes, who supplies them to who. That can only happen if we own indigenous businesses. That's why I really disagree with the socialist kind of idea. You know, it is important for you, the young Africans right now, to think about what kind of businesses are we building. That's where maybe I agree with Professor Kajabago that perhaps the African entrepreneur, and I insist an African entrepreneur should own African resources, should be ethical. Yes, it should be ethical. But it is far worse if it is an European who doesn't give value to the African zoning. Right? So to me, in my own opinion, Africa is only going to develop if we get African entrepreneurs who can bring out African resources from African soil and supply them and create that value for Africans themselves. And that's no other person's responsibility, it's ours. So to me, and I'm a youth myself, to me it was just a message that we need to stress the fact that as Africans we need to build businesses that stretch the breadth of Africa. But yes, make real values and ethics and say, you know, how do you distribute this wealth to Africans themselves? Thank you so much.
So the less the people want to borrow from those ones you are claiming that we are the problem. You are borrowing because you are incapacitated mentally, because we are physically okay. But what we are asking whether we are mentally okay. Okay? Why do we borrow more? And even what we are borrowing, as I'm going to see in my next presentation, even the borrowed money is not used the way how it's supposed to be used. Others can ask, where does that money go? Since all of you are scholars, you know where it goes. So, number one is debt burden. Now, the IMF and World Bank, because they know that we are weak in terms of thinking, less in terms of implementation, less in terms of creativity, they know that we need to survive, and the only way to survive is by depending on handouts. And therefore they have to keep on giving us money. And also that money comes with some other conditions. Now when they are sending that money to us, we say, the Wazungu are bad. But you were starving. You cannot run and implement your budget. You can imagine even in Uganda here, we finance about 45 or about 48% of the total budget. So where does the rest of the money comes from? From those people you are criminalizing. The problem is mainly caused by the Congo's instability.
Caused by who?
By imperialists.
Are we aware that the imperialists are the ones causing that?
Yes, because they are interested in their natural resources.
If we are aware, what are we doing about it as Africa?
Yeah, because the only thing is that now, if you are to ask an African leader, because we are neighbors, we are just watching, but we know.
You know?
We are just watching.
You know?
Yes, we know. We know. Uganda, you know. Don't you know that in Congo is the richest country in the whole world?
And then?
And therefore, the Western world cannot allow Congo to stabilize.
Now, many people think that the question of the economic crisis in Africa is a current one. While the rest of the world's economy was growing at an annual rate of 2% in 1974, from then to the 1990s, Africa's performance was simply in decimals. Over time, Africa's performance grew to negatives, and millions of Africans, the trail of poverty kick-started from way back till then. People will talk about the debt burden. How about we looked at the other side and started to discuss the interest rates that come with these loans? When you realize from a World Bank report, African countries have higher interest rates as compared to European countries.
This is one of the reasons as to why we think it is us Africans to blame for our economic crisis. Really, there is a very big problem of inconsistency, leadership, governance, and democracy in Africa. Trust me, the economy cannot thrive in an democratic environment. You people know that today we can thrive and vote by the percentage of 5%, and tomorrow you will be down at a percentage of 80%. So what is that? What are you trying to do? So I think that we have to blame. The other thing is the education crisis. We may not agree, but trust me, most of you are not doing what you studied. And if you're doing it, you're forcing yourself onto it. You cannot tell me that you have a university student doing engineering but cannot repair a normal motorcycle, and you still say, let us blame the Western world because this thing has been structured on us.
Motorcycle is too much, a bicycle.
Thank you very much. So you cannot tell me that thing, we shall go and start blaming the Western world for that. We need to ourselves review our education system, review our curriculum. By doing so, we shall have equipped ourselves, gotten more people to be with us. You get? You've equipped yourself with labor that is skilled, and skilled as semi-skilled. That is all you need for a thriving and in an economy, for an economy to thrive. The third point is the lack of unity, Pan-Africanism and patriotism in Africa. This has made most African leaders to start pushing to forget the interests of Africa and start pushing personal interests. They start pushing family interests. They start pushing interests of their leaders. After all those problems, and many more that my comrades have talked about, I will come with a solution.
Yes.
As long as we do not see the unification of Africa, we are going to have these Zoom meetings. We are going to have these conferences. We are going to go as delegates where and where. But trust me, as long as there is no unification of Africa, we shall still go back to these things, complaining about and blaming our exes 50 years ago for our problems. The unification of Africa will rectify the problem of lack of bargaining capacity that we are not having, that we can have after unifying, getting united as Africans. I'm not saying that it should become one block country, because we know it may not be possible for a meantime. But at least let us have regional blocks. I'm very happy that the East African community, year by year, is enlarging. How about South Africa starts from the other side? By the end, we have 4 blocks. South Africa comes from this side, the East African community has come, and we can have North Africa from the other side. And by the end of 5 years, 10 years, we have 4 blocks, and we are bargaining as 4 blocks against. Through that, we can have exportation of labor. Through that, we can have the exportations that we are talking about. Most of the these things, we tax ourselves a lot of money. You find Kenya charges a tax on a commodity that is passing through Kenya. Remember, it is going to Rwanda or Burundi. It reaches Uganda. Uganda taxes. It reaches Burundi. Rwanda taxes. By the time it reaches Burundi, it is very expensive for this common person to consume. So what are we trying to say? Let us have a unified Africa. Let us all push for a unified Africa. And through that, we shall get what we preserve.